I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call meeting order. Roll call.
Mayor Westerberg.
Yes.
Stankham.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Beckman.
Yes.
Waltman.
Yes.
Any public forum? Move on to consent agenda. Motion to approve.
We'll make that motion. Second.
Roll call.
Dale, will you second? No.
I can be.
Dave. Stankham.
Yes.
Waltman.
Yep.
Beckman.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Okay, utilities director report.
Alright, so since our last actual council meeting and not budget, obviously snow, we installed a new heater at the shelter house, did rereads and reading of meters, made material lists for community project and other pending projects. We hauled sand to replenish our pile. We shut power off to the hotel per the electrician as he needed to replace a breaker. And then we turned it back on. We cleaned the ditch witch up. Replaced a couple broken or frozen water lines in the shelter house, fixed a sampler at the wastewater plant, fixed a tire on the skid loader and on one of the Ford F-150s. Moved snow, sanded, replaced the blade on the belly and the wing of the white plow truck, fixed the plow of the white truck, transmission line on the yellow truck, transmission line on the white plow truck, power steering on the yellow. Met with contractors on the storm project at Harbor Drive per our last meeting to get different quotes to include the add-ons that we discussed. I have received one of those back, we're waiting on the second one. Got the siren out here. City Hall is fixed and working and going off at noon. We are still waiting for Power Solutions to get the equipment for the radio read so we can have that, all of them on that radio read and working properly. We had the high service pumps descaled. Cleaned the shop, hosed off our equipment to get some of the sand and salt off of it. The cable on the dog ears that holds the backhoe in place broke, so we ordered that. Worked on fixing the water and the faucets at the shelter house as the faucets were plugged a little bit, and then some of the boys took some of their comp time to recoup from the amount of work that they put in during what I call Snowmageddon. Also, what you'll find in front of you is per our last actual council meeting, not just budget, Dave asked me to make a T-chart of pros and cons of the grader and what I would call a payloader. I'm not very good at T-charts, and so what I did was just type it up, and then you also have a letter from an individual, Mike Rydell, who's in charge of Sac County, who I believe is more of a road expert than myself. So when in doubt, ask somebody who has more experience than yourself. So you guys can read that over, ask questions, whatever you'd like. That's kind of where we're sitting at. Any questions?
You got one comment, siren sounds good, but we need to do some programming. It went off on Sunday, which it normally doesn't do.
Okay. Well, and when they came and fixed it, they couldn't get it to go off at all. So they thought the timer in the box went bad. So then on Friday when it did go off, we were kind of shocked because apparently the timer is not bad. But once the radio read gets done, we'll be able to program it a lot easier. But I will talk to Derek and see what he can do to make that not go off on Sunday.
And we're also trying to work on getting the lights so that they're shut off down at the pickleball court too.
Correct. And sorry I dropped the ball on that one. I thought Trent was going to go turn it off. He has not yet. We will make sure that is done first thing tomorrow morning.
Jason, you and your guys did a good job during snow. It was difficult, especially with the new crew. So everybody knows we had a lot of new guys running the trucks.
We're trying.
You did well. Okay, Chris, anything you can share?
Yeah, we've had 255 calls for service last month, or within the last 30 days. 8 of those were law department assist. We've had 26 traffic stops here in town. So we've been doing pretty good. We've been staying pretty busy yet, but it has slowed down a little bit.
Because it'll pick up in a couple months.
Yeah, we'll start picking up again, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Teresa?
Mine is, I guess, I went to the Maine quarterly meeting out in Kearney, Nebraska, a couple of weeks ago. That, I'm still a little overwhelmed with the electrical department, but I'm learning, trying to understand all the verbiage. So that was an interesting meeting. They've got a couple other meetings coming up, and I would like to, if they're available remotely. Kearney's a long ways away. I would try and attend those virtually. And then we've been working through with the snowstorms and different things, working with Jason to go through that and checking roads. And then I've been working on the budget, so trying to imagine what next year's gonna look like.
It'll be better. Thank you. Okay, we've got to consider a planned equipment maintenance proposal.
Oh,
Jason, you have that
sorry.
information?
What you find in your packet is Cummins, who is the manufacturer of our generator out there. They do maintenance agreements, and they do it over the 5 years. And then after the 5 years, they do it again. They come service it, make sure that the generator is always gonna work when it's supposed to work, and help with some of that stuff. I think it's a good idea. I think it's gonna maintain our generator and keep it running the way we need it to run. I'm not a generator expert, and I would believe these guys are way better qualified for that than I am.
It's pretty similar to the one we have at the courthouse.
Probably, yes, sir.
They have a grill at the courthouse.
Was the generator ever kicked on there?
Every Tuesday.
Oh, okay. It checks itself?
Ours kicks on every Thursday.
You want them to run every so often.
Yeah.
It does the automatic test on Tuesday, and then usually before we lost power.
I see on this thing, it's got a warranty expiration date, it's 5 years from the date it was installed. Is that still, will that be extended with this coverage, or?
It doesn't cover the warranty aspect of it. It just makes it easier for them to replace the parts because they'll be here checking them before they go into complete failure. But Cummins, that's a total different warranty than such as our wastewater plant. The day they install it is the day their warranty starts. Whether we own it or the bond company owns it.
Is it just diesel fuel analysis, or do we get an oil analysis as well? Do you know?
I do not know. I cannot answer that question.
If not, can we add that to, because they're gonna service it,
Yep.
right? So I'm assuming that's changing the oil on that.
I would assume that also, but like I said, I'm assuming. I can't give you a definite answer on that, but I would assume that's part of their, in the previous agreements I've seen with other things, that's what they do, is they change the oil and oil analysis and change it as needed. Oh, actually, if you look on page 7, oil and coolant analysis, sampling included, and all inspection services provided on overall snapshot of the equipment condition.
So they come out once a year to do this, is that kind of, am I reading this right, or?
Yes, sir.
And if we have, something goes wrong, we call them to bring it in, or do we have to look for somebody else?
No, we call them.
Did they say anything about how frequent something does break, or is there a pattern to any of this, or how long is their response time? I guess that's.
They're coming out of Sioux Falls.
I see that there's additional services, winterization, oil extension program stuff. On the winterization on the fuel, are you treating that fuel for the?
We
winter?
are.
Okay, figured, so we don't need that.
No.
No, okay. I think it's a good thing we have this done. I'll make the motion that we move forward with this agreement.
Second that.
When will this start?
as soon as I get the contract back to them.
Okay, and then they pick the date, or do we pick the date when we wanna have?
I'm pretty sure I can forcefully pick the date.
Just the idea that, you know, we go in the summer and stuff, that seems to be always heat and stuff like that.
We just had them in October when they had to do the our warranty repairs because of not owning it yet, all part of the bond stuff that we're still dealing with. I do know when he was here, he looked everything over and he said everything looked great at that point in time.
Okay.
Minus the fuel sensor that he had to fix, which was causing it not to start on its weekly test like it's supposed to. Now it does. It turns on every Thursday at 9 a.m. and runs until 9:30 every Thursday.
Roll call.
Beckman,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes,
Waltman.
Yep.
Stankham.
Yes.
Okay, we have a new owner for the Blackhawk Recreational Rentals. Nick is here tonight. It's the same contract we had previously. Does anybody have any questions?
The only question I have, and I think Dave might have cleared it up, but where's,
Back there.
on your Facebook page, you were advertising the Stone Pier barbecue stuff and gonna start selling stuff out of there, but that has been,
So essentially, all we'd be using it for would be just a pickup point. The cooking would still happen as we're doing at the house versus a delivery with us going out to it. Essentially, that becomes a pickup point there at the rec center.
So if somebody orders on Facebook like we have been in the past, they'll just come there and pick it up?
Yep, everything would have to be pre-ordered. Nobody could walk up to the shack, place an order, and take food with them. So it would still have to be a pre-order thing for us to stay with our license with the state.
okay, cause my only concern with that, now we're competing against ourselves with our campground facility.
Oh, so what do you mean?
Well, because they sell food at the concession stand at the campground. So if you, but the way you're doing it, it's not. But if they could walk up to the window and say, hey, I wanna get a ABC sandwich, or they could walk down to our window and get a sandwich, now we're competing against ourselves, and I don't want to start that. And at some point in time, I want the council for us to get a policy in place for these businesses down there, whether it be in the future or what not have you. And it'd probably be an evaluation of the rent fee. I mean, that's just my opinion. Not this year, but next year.
and I've got a concern, and I've heard it through the community before. It's on public ground, and where we can draw the line, you know. I like the idea of the business. It's going good, hopefully it continues. But, you know, say somebody wants to start selling T-shirts, or somebody wants to sell bait down there, where are we gonna draw the line and quit putting buildings down there? It's a decision that we got to address before it happens, so, and I've heard comments from the community, why is it on public ground, you know? These people uptown are paying rent in their buildings, and you're paying $75 a month for a prime lakefront property, that you can't rent a camping spot for a long weekend for that kind of money, what you're paying for a month.
I think that when Sandy brought this to our attention, was to provide a service for, you know, the campground and the general public to come down and utilize the lake. Where if they did it on Main Street, it wouldn't be as,
Yeah, I agree, but it's
so
still part
I
of what we
guess,
gotta.
you know,
Yeah,
and I still think it's a great idea.
I
I'm
do
glad Nick
too,
has took it over, and it, like the mayor has said in the past, it saves us the liability and the city of actually hiring people to do it, and you know, I'm glad Sandy
But
did that.
we gotta justify being able to say yes to this one and no to that one, and where are we gonna draw that line?
That's why I think we need a policy in place
Right.
moving forward. I know he was at a council meeting prior, and we said he'd go for it, we would do it, but I just want him to be aware that talks and policies are gonna go into place in the future that could affect how it operates today, and that's only my opinion. And I think you understand it,
And I'm all for it, I
Yeah.
just don't wanna create conflict down the road. It's,
And from our side, we'd like to participate and contribute in that conversation so that it is. Our intention is not to get an unfair advantage over anybody else. Our intention is to bring an amenity to the city, to the town,
Yep.
and continue to expand.
agreed, thank you.
Nick, just so you know, I've heard nothing but positive comments. Nobody, I've had not one negative comment. And I think it's a huge thing for the voters to be able to continue to use that facility and what you're gonna do. And if they wanna pick up some food, I have no problem. We let other people sell stuff down by the park and everything else, so.
Well, we wanna make sure everybody knows too, our intention would never be to compete with the stand. We would make sure that we're not serving any of the same items. We wouldn't wanna have conflicting
Yeah.
things with them.
but I think, part of my point is, we're leasing you a prime spot for this much money. And like Mike just said, we have bars and restaurants uptown, we have a bar and restaurant on the other side of the lake, that's on the lake, that pays more than what you're paying for the lease in the spot on property taxes,
Sure.
just for the ground. So, we want that business there, but when you start expanding into all this other things, it competes against the other businesses we have in town, that was not the original intent. When this thing originally started, and Tammy sitting back there, and Whitey and Dave was on the council, it was a trailer that was gonna be moved in and out over the weekends. And now it turned into a permanent shed. And then they come and wanted, last year, was it last year or the year before, they wanted to put a bunch of golf carts down there. We couldn't get an answer, how many golf carts, you know? Is it gonna be 2, is it gonna be 4? We asked them, and they said, well, as many as it takes to supply the need for the town. Well, that's not an answer, because that is valuable space, even if nothing else, we're short parking spots down there for the boaters to go to and from the bay. Love the idea of having it down there, don't get me wrong, but we gotta set some parameters as a city to protect the other businesses in town as well. That's my opinion. And that's where I'm bringing that policy, and not tonight, but at some point that's gotta come into play.
And just to be clear, I think when Nick is talking about a pickup point, this is basically kind of how you've operated Stone Beer Barbecue, where you take all the orders at the beginning of the week and have them paid for, and it's just literally, instead of either them coming to your house or you delivering them, it's a pickup point.
Exactly. The
So
only
there's
difference from
nothing,
what we're
there's
currently
nothing,
doing
nobody can go up and say, you know, hey, I saw it, but do you by chance have a, you know, barbecue pork sandwich available? It's not, it's all pre-ordered, prepaid, it's just basically a pickup point, and that would be how his food license would currently allow. What,
Everything is still
Yep.
done and packed prior, all we would be doing is taking that pre-packaged.
yeah, and a certain time frame allowable for that, so, just so that,
That's a clarification.
yeah, so that it's just.
Yeah,
that it's
within
clear.
the state health guidelines, we only have a certain window. The order time, the pickup time have to be 4 hours.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, I knew you had the understanding, but I, you know, so that everybody else understood that would work.
I'll make a motion to approve the lease for
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Walton,
Hawk Recreation Rentals.
I didn't get to finish my sentence. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, what?
Yes.
yes. Right,
Yes,
Jensen,
Yes.
Stankhip,
Yes.
Beckman.
Yes.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you, guys.
I'm not gonna do the public hearing until 6 o'clock, and that's when it's advertised. The public hearing is a procedural thing, we just have to have a public hearing and we'll close it. There'll be no action by the council on that. So we'll move to budget requests from the park board. Do we have park board here?
Nope, it's not here. I'll put some thing in there. It's on the back here, it looks like.
I wonder if she thinks it's at 7. I wonder if she thinks it's at 7.
This is just a
Who was
budget
supposed to
request.
come?
Right, we're not really taking
Right.
action.
We're not taking on
No,
action.
there's no action, it just was her request, she wanted to be on the.
One thing, looking at this though, Connie might be able to answer this. We got them 2 grants for the pickleball court, right? Didn't we get 2 $50,000 grants? That's
No,
it?
one $50,000 grant,
Just one?
one, and then a $25,000 grant from SCTD.
So it was just 75, not 100?
Right, but it made we had $25,000 from the city, so that's where you got your 100 at.
Okay.
Why, what were you thinking?
Well, because I thought at one of the meetings we were talking about, we had this extra money for the pickleball court, and didn't we add some shade? Because we had the grant money to spend.
We did that, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know if there was any left in that, because we could use that for that, pavers.
Oh, yeah, there's still money in there. There's like 3,000, I think. I'm not on the foundation anymore. You'd have to ask Jim, but I think it's about 3,000. But part of that is for a camera, at least one camera, which we're supposed to have set up this spring, but it won't take even close to that. I'd say you'd have 2, as long as it's for that area.
Right.
I think you'd be okay.
Because,
There's also money in the splash pad fund.
okay. I just see where it says the pavers for around the pickleball court.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just thought
I could pay for that,
Yeah,
yep.
that's why I was asking.
Yep.
So, and
As
then-
long as it was in with that budget, yeah.
And then did we ever find out on that grant stuff?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I'm working on it. There's different places I gotta pull the information from, so.
All right, thanks. That's why I was asking.
It's on my
that.
list of
Okay.
things to do.
Well, a question, why are we putting pavers around there? Is that to keep the weeds away from the
Yes.
fence line?
Yes.
That's what I figured. It's,
Gail said I was already, thought it was at 6 p.m. I would be there.
Well,
Do we need her to come, or?
she doesn't have to go, 'cause
I mean, unless she wants to explain her thoughts and ideas, but, I mean,
She's welcome.
because I haven't talked to them about any of this, so.
well, let's work on some budget work session until 6 o'clock.
Oops, sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
Some reading material.
More reading material. You guys love it when I give you reading material, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Always get so excited about it. It's
And
just
it's
a
in
bunch of
color.
dollar stuff. It's all about the dollars. So today I had a conversation with Travis Squires with Piper Jaffrey, or Piper Sandler now they're called, I guess. Kind of looking at our rates. He must have done a study, I think he said the last time he looked at them was back in 2020. So we looked at both sewer and water. The sewer rates, basically your front page and then the second page, considers if you don't change any of the rates at all, which I know that we changed them for the wastewater treatment plant, and I think we've had a couple of years that we haven't changed anything, but with the idea that maybe you would pick up some incremental rate increases just to keep up with inflation. Because if we don't do something, then on the front page, there, when it's zero rate and change, but we still have to configure, inflation rate, that we don't keep up with, the debt that we have incurred with the wastewater treatment plant, let alone our regular expenditures, and all of the other expenses with, year to year from things. And it's just, he just basically figured a 3%, which is a, small incremental increase, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. And then water, kind of the same thing. If we don't do anything with water, and we don't have, currently this has no debt included in it whatsoever, so this doesn't even look at, because we don't have real solid numbers on what, the capital improvements, with the well, the water plant, those kinds of things. We have guesstimates, but nothing that's really solid to put anything into there. But even if you just figured a zero rate change, but an inflation figure factor of 3, right now he's got us doing a positive net cash flow. We don't, so I think he's got some information that is not correct in his calculation, but also, if you look at that, we, considerably go negative, certainly, in the future, where if you go with a 3% rate increase, at least we kind of begin to have the conversation about getting us into, positive, cash flow. It's gonna take us, I think it's gonna take us some time just because we aren't there, yet. We're still operating in the red. But, I think, so on the third page that I have for you, which is kind of blue and yellow, yeah. So this was the spreadsheet that I had in Holstein. There's a lot of other charges that they have that we don't have here in Lakeview. So I basically put it down to the nuts and bolts of what's highlighted in blue. Basically, if we take our base charges on the ordinance now, 23, 24, what those figures are, and you put a 3% increase even just across the board on what your general utility bill would be, then this doesn't figure in anybody that's over 1,000 gallons. This is just your base rate figure. You basically go up, what is it, less than 33, 34. It's a little over $1 a month by increasing your rates 3%.
In that base fee, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah,
On the top there.
yeah, it's basically your base charge. It's your base bill without, or I've got both figures, with garbage, fuel, well, we don't charge a fuel surcharge and I didn't take that piece out, or tax. So you would go from $33.15 to $34.37 if you only used 1,000 gallons a month of water.
So that base fee includes the first 1,000, is that correct?
Yes. It doesn't include anything over 1,000.
What does, well, this is just for information, right?
This is just for information, but I mean, I'll certainly take questions and see if I can find answers.
We have a lot of part-time residents, so can we get an accurate figure on the average household usage of permanent residents that live here 12 months out of the year?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Might take a little bit.
Yeah, that shouldn't be. So you're just talking, what, like if they use that, what their bill would look like if they used 2,000 gallons a month and what,
What they, like Dave and I and Whitey and
Right.
Tim and Mike, us five, for example, we live here 12 months out of the year.
Right.
What is our average monthly usage?
How much are you using?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But you wanted it separated between full-time residents and seasonal residents?
Well, because if we can, because the seasonal residents just, they skew
Also,
that number.
Because it's not, they're not classified separately.
Right.
All under residential, so we would have to pick and choose.
If you
And we
just
can do
picked-
that.
If you just picked out 30, single person, retiree,
Right.
somebody with 2 kids or whatever.
Yeah, could you divide it, just do it 6 months and 6 months and get a rough estimate?
We can get it.
Spring, summer, then fall to fall through spring again, do 6 months and just see what the differences is.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the part-time people are gonna be here from Memorial Day to Labor Day. You can do Labor Day to Memorial Day, Memorial Day to Labor Day. just
We
get a
got
rough
several people that are just here on weekends,
Yeah.
just in the summer.
Right,
Yep,
and
so
they're only gonna use the minimum anyway. But yeah, so we can take a sampling of 30 permanent residents and what they use and just take an average. That's. But I kinda wanted to give you an idea of when you're talking about increasing rates and, water, has not been increased for a really, long time. If we don't do something incrementally and then all of a sudden we have to make a big jump, I think that's what we don't wanna do. And if we're talking about having to dig a new well and we're talking about having to do water plant, upgrades, in that timing, you're looking at, we can't get there. I mean, on the water rates, we can't get to, he just gave me an average on $1 million and we are nowhere near where we need to be on $1 million worth of debt. Even, and if we're looking at multi for the well, the water plant, and water pressure issues,
Do we have a fee for, like, when the guys go out to ABC and shut their water off for the winter,
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and then a fee to turn it back on?
only to shut it off.
So I think there's some things that we can certainly look with the ordinance as well, you know, as far as, you know, different things that you can do, you know, instead of, there's options, and that's kind of why I left some of this stuff highlighted in yellow in here of what, and I've also asked what other cities do as well for their water rates and ordinances, so I can kind of get an idea of where we stand versus towns similar to our size. So, you know, there's different things where, you know, like your water capital projects fee. I mean, there's certain things that you can do over a period of time without just having to always mess with your rates. Do you follow what I'm saying with that?
Do you know what our last rate increase was? Do you have that, or you don't have it just for the
I
next?
don't, it's been a while for water.
I wanna say the last somebody said was 2015.
2015.
15 or 16 is the last time. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Somewhere in that time frame. And what the amount was, that I have no clue. I just,
I thought maybe she had it, but that's for just conversation.
But we can go back to this too.
We got two things we're gonna do quick. We're gonna do the public hearing, and then we're gonna have, is that Gail here?
I'm here, sorry.
If you would, when we get done with this, is this gonna take a short period of time, then you can talk to us about the
It's
park?
fine, not a problem, thank you.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing on the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of costs for the Lakeview Community Center project.
And basically, this is just procedural. We had given notice on this public hearing, to listen to public comments. The project has gone out for bid. Typically what happens is that you do this public hearing and then you go on and do the, you know, take consideration of the bids and those kinds of things. We did extend the bid due date to February 8th. We extended it by 2 weeks to give people that were looking at this to bid on it, give them some more time to get their bids put together. Because it is an extensive project and there's a lot of detail to it. So we did extend that. Right now, we're looking at considering those bids would be on the regular council meeting on February 19th. So that will give us about a week to take a look at the bids and make sure they've got everything included in what we were looking for, and different things like that. So that's what that is. So basically the public hearing is just to hear any public comments on questions that they have. So, and I haven't gotten anything in my office, whether it be verbal or written on anything with the community center.
With no public input, the public hearing is closed. Gail, you're up next.
Okay. I want to apologize, sorry about that, guys. On my old time schedule, I've been.
You're just fine, Gail.
Okay, our park board budget for this year is pretty simple and lined out. It's the 50th anniversary of the fountain. I don't know if you guys are aware, but it was donated to us 50 years ago this year. And so we would like to get that up and running again. We're talking about using last year's budget, which we had planned, to possibly paint, thanks to this young man right here, he's gonna help. And to redo all the plumbing, because they're concerned about the pipe is getting so corroded. And if we can get that all replumbed and put in a new actual fountain part, that would be the best thing. I did have the pavers and landscaping kind of estimated, and we thought we could put pavers around it, would be easier for the parks to mow. And that's our plan, is to try to make it easier for them, because we're getting so many areas to mow around.
Mm-hmm.
And so that total would be $4,000 for that. And then the pickleball court, after much thinking, we talked about putting rock. And I just think that's a nightmare if you're gonna put down mesh and rock and then try to put a border, you're still running into kids throwing rocks and, you know, they're
The
just
mower.
getting good around. Whereas the pavers would be a permanent solution. And we can pave all the way around it, easy to cut around for the parks people and easy to keep it looking nice. So that was $8,000. And then garbage cans, I don't think that we have enough in the park. And so we thought possibly the addition of 3 to 4 garbage cans, the nice blue ones like we have downtown with the lids. I think that would be, and when I priced them, that would be $3,000. So it would be a total budget of $15,000 this year.
I have a question, maybe that you or Connie would know. Were you gonna put some stripings or strips in the fence so the wind didn't do something with the pickleball?
See, now, nobody ever said that to me.
No, I think we're fine right now.
That might have been a rumor.
Might have, I haven't heard that,
This
but I don't
time?
know.
Not
Oh,
this
no,
time.
not in this town. But anyway, so that, it's pretty cleared, so.
So I know last year we had the fountain running,
Yeah.
because we had Black Squirrel down there,
Yeah.
so there's still, I mean, are you thinking there's still a concern?
Well, when I spoke with him, he said that the piping itself is getting so corroded, so he feels if we want it to run and run properly, that we should probably repipe it, and then possibly look at the motor. And then we're going to possibly get a new profile for the middle of it.
Okay.
That just shoots straight up and down. I've been in contact with SAC, and they're going to be sending me the information that the people they deal with for their fountain, which always looks nice. And see, we would like to possibly get, in that budget, I've included some lighting. And the original lights were amber blue and brown, or amber, blue, and just clear. And so that's what we're gonna try to do, is get lights back in it so it's lit up.
You gonna put a cup down there to put the detergent in?
Oh, yeah, I know, that's what I'm worried about, but,
Is this
Thanks for putting that out there, Mayor.
but the problem is, they said that these new pumps now are, most of it is stainless, and then a lot of times that won't hurt it,
Oh,
so.
The one thing, Jason and I, when we were going over this, then, and we had a conversation, about the splash pad and
Mhm.
the idea of either one, making sure that we have extra diaphragms available
Yeah.
for next year, and or also putting a filter in so that the water that's going to the splash pad has a little bit different quality to it, so we've been kinda looking at that as well.
Because we do have money off last year's budget yet, I believe, that we can use for that, and I think that would be a wonderful idea. Yeah. Because we didn't use all our budget up last year, I don't believe, with the fountain anyway, so we could rob Peter to pay Paul.
One question about around the pickleball court.
Yeah,
Would it be, and I'm just asking, would it be much different if we just poured a 1.5 foot or 2 foot apron of concrete around there?
it wouldn't be as aesthetically pleasing, I think,
Right, but,
but that would be the only difference.
right, because the pavers start to move and heave
Yeah,
and so
that's
much
true.
more.
That's true,
In
I
our-
can look into that, I
in
think
our
more than
environment.
that.
So one thing that we could look at is like a stamped concrete, that maybe
Oh,
would look
yes,
at,
that's a great idea.
that would
I
look
never
like,
thought of that.
cause there's some places that'll do that, it'll actually do an edging
Yeah,
of something
Oh, that
that
would
looks
be-
similar to a paver, but not the intense, might
I would-
actually be less labor.
I would be very open to that.
Did you get this $8,000 bid from
I
somebody or?
got, I got 2 different bids,
Okay,
and, they were within $200 of each other. So, the 2 people around, so,
right, I just
yeah,
curious.
yeah, so. But, I mean, we could pour a lot of concrete, I think, for that, and stamp it. I'll get some estimates and get to you with those.
Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing I'm thinking of, sometimes our lawnmower operators might get up on the pavers and then bend them and.
Oh, I never, yeah.
mean,
I just was trying.
Once in a great while.
Yeah.
been known to happen.
Well, and I, just trying to make it easy for them is what we were
Right.
kind of thinking, less time, so.
Well, I mean,
wanted to
either
ask
one would
if
look,
the park board
I
was.
think either one would look really nice.
Yeah.
But just depending on what,
Does our park board work with our head of parks on stuff in the past?
We have, yes.
So like, is the park board, and I don't know this, I'm asking, Is the park board only for our speaker park, or is it for all of our parks?
It's for all of our parks that are DNR owned,
Right, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah.
Gail, the park board does a magnificent job. It's an envy of every town that was.
Well, thank you, I think it's a beautiful park, we're so blessed to have it, so.
So, one thing we talked about, and I've gotta bring this up because I got little grandkids, okay?
Yeah,
We have the pickleball court all lit up, but yet our playground equipment is dark as can be. And I understand why the pickleball court is lit up, because of
yeah.
history. But if we're gonna light that up, how hard would it be to light up the playground part too?
Well, I agree, that's something we thought of, but we wanted to get these items out of the way. And then we're looking at possibly next year adding a new piece of equipment to the playground. And at that time possibly doing cameras and
Okay.
lighting. That's in our, I had planned, so.
Somebody asked me, the pickleball court's all lit up, and what about these little kids that are over here in the dark?
Yeah, and it's a hot spot at night, so it just would be another deterrent, so.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you very much, I'm sorry for that.
No problem.
No problem.
Okay, we'll go back to the budget work session.
Okay, so there, are there any other suggestions besides average household usage on water and sewer questions that I think? Yeah, yeah. Right, and I had actually had a column over here of kind of usage, but I deleted it out, so.
Also like to see at different 3%, 5%, you know. So
And I can do that.
This is 3.
This is 3%.
Is that 3?
Yes, that's basically a 3% every year, so, you know, an incremental,
I
right.
just want to make sure that wasn't a next year or something, this is figured in at 3%.
No, yeah, I mean, I think sewer is doing okay, but I think we want to be able to stay,
We need to get into the block for some of these extra things, we can't just continue to just get by.
right.
You know, there's so many things that are coming down the line that we need to have some cash on hand to be able to cover some of those.
Well, yeah, and when you put it out per bill, you know, you think 3%, oh, you know, but when it's only like, I'd rather do it like $1.50 a month for a year, you know, then all of a sudden we're raising everybody's by, you know, yeah, you know, and that little, that kind of eases the budget just a little bit, that says, you know, hey, you know, it's not quite as bad.
Right.
But I will do an incremental, I had a column there, but, I will do what, an average consumption of, we'll pick 30 permanent residents out, and I'll do that.
The only bad part about that is every year people say, my electricity went up again.
But the thing about that, we gotta sell the point that we're making these improvements.
Right,
And we gotta set up the public to let us know that this is what we're doing, this is working towards, because, like I said, this is a 40-year plan, this is what I've been preaching since I've been on here, that we've been up to a certain point, nothing has happened, now we gotta replace stuff, and it's just wear and tear, it's just, I mean, that's the thing that we gotta understand, that it takes money to keep things rolling.
And that's why I asked Teresa for them numbers, is because we have a lot of permanent residents in this town that are paying for these services for these residents that are here 12 weekends a year. And we gotta supply that service to them, but yet they're not paying, where we could change our base fee to help adjust that. Does that make sense?
Could tweak the
That's
base
only my
fee
opinion.
and then lower raise the maximum, the 1,000 gallon,
Right, you could-
raise that.
Right, to cover that, to offset
Can
that.
offset the cost.
Well, right, so you could do your base fee at 5, and then, I mean, we can do it however we want.
Yeah.
I mean, you could raise your base fee at 5, but look, you know, your per 1,000 might not go up incrementally as much.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so, or even, you know, so then you're but remember, your base fee is applicable to everybody, then, but it's just your per 1,000
To make it.
over customers that would,
Yep, and we
would
could
have
even lower
the-
that per 1,000 even possibly down to, you know, to
Right.
a lower level, so that the permanent people that are using it all the time, they're paying more up front, but their long-term bill might be similar, but then the people that
Right.
are only here
Right.
once in a while are paying more to have that service, but they're never gonna get to that
We
that
have
minimum or whatever.
an enormous amount of that in this.
There's a huge
And
amount.
yet we have to provide all that services
Yep, yep.
for it.
And we're thrilled to have it, but
Right, yeah,
also,
correct.
But could you also use a surcharge of some sort?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's different ways, and that's why I'll go, and when I get information back from others, that's why I wanted to keep, at least I know, you know, what my familiarity was, you know, where it came from was different charges that we had that we aren't charging here, that you could also, you know, implement that wouldn't be always permanent, you know, if you wanted to keep it and differentiate, well, this, you know, like the water capital projects fee, that was only used for improvements. You know, that was basically something that we used, you know, for improvements, so we did some water plant upgrades. That's where that money came from, and it's basically almost like a set aside. I mean, I know, you know, we put different monies set aside now, but that's kind of where, you know, some of those fees would go. So just different thought process. You know, the other thing, the utility late fee, at least on water and sewer, is $5. I don't know that we have a whole lot of customers that are always late, but to me, $5 is one of those that $5 means absolutely nothing to most.
Especially today's.
didn't even notice it.
Right, so
A pack of cigarettes.
I think that consideration could be, you know, I know we have to make sure, because we're part of the utilities board, but our electric late fee is different than our water late fee, so, I mean, we make sure that everything was kosher with the utilities board before we did anything. But I mean, I even recommend the possibility of looking at that and saying, okay, you know, we just might alleviate some of our late fee payers that are always late if it starts to hurt them a little bit.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they might make the attempt, because over a year, $15 a month can be, you know, better than a utility bill. You know, so just some of those thought processes as I'm going, you know, through here, and working on stuff that I think, I mean, obviously it all has to be done through ordinance, so you can't just, you know, make decisions, but we can move that direction. Then just so that you guys know, I guess, and I kind of went through, on the last couple of pages here, just so that you know where we.
Which one are you on now?
This would be, so there's the first four, so it would be kind of page 5 on the ones that stapled together.
Okay.
So I went in and based on our valuation, so this page is kind of what the front page of our certificate of taxes would look like. There's no, the nitty gritty is behind, but really this comes down to the page of what can we ask for from our tax paying citizens. So this last year we had, in taxable growth, we had 15.07% in taxable growth. With the limitations that the legislature has set out for us this year, our revenue growth percentage would only be 11.72%. So if you look at what, in the top number here, your max rate last year was $6.66, and that's the rate, I believe, that is the rate that y'all had. Yes, $6.66, 013, which brought in $647,000. So this year, the maximum rate that we can have on the general levy rate is $6.46. So that's actually lowering the levy rate. But with the revenue growth, with the valuation growth we had, it's actually bringing in more dollars that we have. Does that make sense? Okay. So if we don't use any of the other levy fees going down this page, and I've included what our debt service is, and our debt service dropped from, last year your debt service was a little over 83 cents a thousand. This year, because we had 2 loans that dropped off, so your debt service is now not quite 70 cents a thousand. You would be lowering, last year you were at $7 and a little over 49 cents a thousand, and this would be $7.16 a thousand. would be your overall rate. That basically is the maximum rate, unless you guys use some of these other levies, which you can. You have the option, and I don't know, you know, the only other levies that basically we could use would be, you can, if we get through this and we decide that we need to shift some liability, property, and self-insurance costs, so that would be like our general insurance costs. That's the amount that we pay for ICAP for just our general insurance. So you could put some of your expenses in that field. The other option that you also have, you know, with our health insurance getting so high, you also have the option to stick that into other employee benefits. We can't do anything with FICA and IFRS because you aren't at the levy limit. But those are options. My desire is not to go that way, but we have to see where Parks shakes out and where the police department shakes out. I was working on that today. We've had, with some of the salary increases that we've had over the year, the police department budget has gone up a little bit. So, just.
Speaking of the police department budget, when you talk about that with salary, and I know that, we talked about new vehicles and stuff like that, and Chris said, it's all in the budget, it's all in the budget. Are we just raising his budget, or is that your proposal, just to raise his budget? Because, like today, for example, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we have 2 people on duty.
And we can go over that, with him on, what his reasoning is for having, 2 people here on staff. I don't know if they were actually, clocked in or, how they were, if they were, if they were out patrolling, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask.
I just met one of the cops patrolling that wasn't our chief, and I thought our chief was on duty from 5 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, or 5 in the morning till whatever.
Right.
I don't really know because we don't have the schedules, but I've seen it before in the winter time where we've had 2 people out patrolling, 2 different officers out patrolling, and this is our offbeat time. We really shouldn't need 2 people patrolling.
And those are conversations that Chris and I haven't specifically sat down and talked about that.
Okay, see where I'm going
right.
with my
Yep.
question there.
No, I get it.
Yeah. Because if I'm a department head and I just need to raise my budget because I got guys working more hours.
And it's not, the cost that I figured is basically the full-time hours and limited amount of overtime on what he's used for overtime. It's just basically what we have agreed to, 1, via the union contract, and 2, bringing, what the council has agreed to, bringing on, the different things.
So the council's agreed to bring on more officers, but I don't know that maybe this is just me being not informed enough. And we're bringing on these other officers because he wants to have 4 officers on staff, I believe was his number.
Yep.
But we have more than 4. We're not guaranteeing 40 hours a week for all of them, right? We have, some of them are part-time.
Yeah, your reserve officers are not, no,
Right.
they don't have that kind of time built in. Now, when he was really busy in the fall and different things, and there was a lot of things going on, my understanding is that he had, staff scheduled a little bit more than what he does now, but he also has realized that his budget is, getting down to where he needs to be a little bit more careful.
Well, I know you and him will have that conversation.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that, geez, I need to raise it
No,
10% because.
And basically, all my budget includes is not because he's got more hours, it's just those four officers, what they are at 40 hours, some overtime built into that, not much. And then, what those salaries, what they're getting paid per hour.
Right. Okay.
And that's how I'm not just increasing, in fact, we took out, he doesn't have a car because we ended up getting both, we had to replace one and then we purchased another, so there's no cars in the budget for next year and different things like that. So we haven't kind of looked at some of his expenses.
But do we need to keep something for replacing vehicles in there?
I am,
Okay.
but not necessarily that we would actually purchase one,
Right.
just some set aside money.
Right, okay.
So that we are still set aside, putting stuff in there for, set aside for, when we do, so that we can pay for it and not have to bond for it, so.
And one thing about this too is that, Chris has gotta realize too that, you know, in order to get officers here, we had to raise our salaries quite a bit. And so-
Yes.
So that's why he needs to tighten his belt a little bit when it comes to making sure that we don't have that overtime, that we don't have to. I'm not telling him how to run his department, but
Right,
we need to stay close to,
close at hand to what he's got,
right.
yep,
That's-
if we can.
I think
mean-
that's a presentation you give to him to, you know, we're not trying to do the takeover here, but we're at crunch time, and now we got a lot of things going on that we wanna do. What you can do to help us is pretty important.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, and certainly we don't wanna waste taxpayer dollars, we wanna make sure that we're running it as efficiently as possible, and I think he's now gotten some of the equipment and stuff that he was trying to achieve for various, you know, reasons and situations, and I think now some of that should fall off, you know, yeah, you're gonna have your maintenance fees on, you know, software and computers and those kinds of things, you're gonna have that annual, and you also have to set aside some of that for replacement going down, you know, the future road. I think he's looking at, trying to raise some money, for a K-9 unit, but that would be strictly all paid by donations and different things. Obviously, you have an expense to it, but it should be offset about, you know, money coming in. There's been a discussion about, a school resource officer, but I said, till the school makes their commitment, I said, we aren't gonna even have that discussion on what it would look like for us, you know, so,
Well, some of this as well as the police and all of the budgeting, this long-term, make each department accountable paperwork that you're kind of working on, is this gonna change much with that? This is gonna be pretty standard on this.
this is gonna be pretty standard
Got it.
unless, like I said, unless we decide to plug in some money here and there. You know, it also depends, and this is what I say, you wanna be careful how much you would lower the levy. Not saying that, you know, your valuations, they're probably gonna incrementally go up with our growth. But you also wanna be very careful on, well, we're gonna lower the levy this much this year, and then, oh my gosh, we're in trouble, and now we've gotta, because now we're gonna be limited. You can't just jump to, you know, we're gonna probably struggle to ever get to the 810 limit, just because our growth and how the legislature has structured that growth, it's gonna be really, you aren't gonna just be able to say, we won't be able to do it. You're gonna have to work within what
The parameters here.
the parameters here that we have.
So with them scaling some of that back, and I get that, but some of this other stuff we could add to gain some of that back, right?
Yes, you can, yes, and you don't have to add, like, you know, if you wanted to add some of the rising health insurance costs, and you can't add proprietary health insurance, so that has to be paid for out of proprietary.
Okay.
So if you're pulling wages out of proprietary, then incrementally you have to take those benefits out of proprietary as well. So, on the other side of that, then if you wanted to, like the police department, we could take their health insurance expenses and we could put that in there. Some of the administration, we could put some of that in there, into
the
that
police
other.
department budget.
Yeah, but, well, it actually would be,
We
you
could
could
use that on the general
use
bit
that
too.
levy down where it says
Yep.
the amount necessary other employee benefits, you could add
Put a
just,
little bit in there.
you could put a little bit in there, you know, it doesn't certainly have to be the entire amount, but that would help offset some of our other places where we might be struggling a little bit in the budget.
What about the support of local emergency management committee, or community?
We aren't charged for the emergency management in Sac County, so that is only used if we were charged.
So we can't charge for that, okay.
No,
Is that
No.
for the guy that I don't know, that I've never seen in 14 years? Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure that was.
How is he funding this?
By the county.
By the county solely?
Yep.
yeah, so that is one of the levies that you could, use there. The other one, so basically the only other levies that we could even look at using would be the liability, property, and self-insurance costs, that levy, and then, the other employee benefits levy. Those are really the only other levies that you could utilize on this sheet.
I think we should look into
So-
utilizing that to some extent.
Okay, I will.
That's my opinion.
Yep, I mean, I,
Have a choice.
Right, well,
I mean,
look at what our health insurance insurance has nailed us the last 2 years almost. And,
That's not going down any
yeah,
better.
well, we might have to look at doing something different, but we've got to recoup some of that, and we've got to get, like what Teresa said, we don't wanna get this where we're going backwards all the time, we've gotta.
Right.
Cause the laws have changed, as we all know.
Yeah.
Right,
I don't know,
you don't,
are they-
you don't wanna necessarily, I mean, as long as you're not incrementally increasing, you know, now your debt service, that could change. But we've, you know, your debt fell off last year a little bit, so we've got, you know, and I provided the sheet, this is actually what, you know, the second page to this is what your debt service is gonna, you know, look like for this year. You know, you got 2 GO loans and then you've got 2 non-GO loans, which, you know, one was the 2017 street project, and I think that only has a couple more years to pay on it. Your rural electric project, that only has a few more years to pay on it, I think that might be done in like 28, 29. Obviously, your sewer project loan, I mean, that's I think a 30-year loan, but that percentage, the interest rate on that is so low, I mean, it just is, you know. And then the fire truck, I don't think, that's only got a couple more years on it,
29,
if that.
But when that ends, that one will be another one.
Yep, your equipment bus, yep.
Well,
will be coming.
no, it'll be another fire, so our fire trucks are on a 30-year rotation.
Okay,
So we have 3 fire trucks, every 10 years we update one.
okay,
So we got one that's gonna be a 2000, so in 29,
so, yeah, so in the next couple of years, we wanna look to ordering that, because they're
Correct.
about 18 months out on delivery.
correct, and we're very fortunate that we usually get pushed right.
Okay,
And then the bus is gonna be a separate, that's not in that. fire truck
No.
deal.
that's right.
How close are they to
That's production scheduled is June 24th,
June
or a
24th?
week of June.
Delivery,
27th.
yep.
Last week of June.
Not delivery, that's
That's
production,
stuff.
that is production.
I
Where's
thought
that
we were
done at?
supposed to have the
Or-
bus,
oh,
and then
Reeves.
did it
Oh,
get
that
pushed
one.
back?
Not the
No,
bus.
the bus, we're done this minute, I can tell you.
I thought that-
Because I thought I,
Oh,
because
the
I
actual
understood that we'd have that
manufacturing, right.
this
Oh, okay.
June, and then we'd
Then
have to
breed
put the
outfit.
Then
equipment in.
breed
Outfits, yeah, okay.
outfit,
It is,
most of it, and then the fire department will
Will read
finish
their own, yeah, they'll handle their own customization,
making of
the actual
some of the
bluebird
wheels
or
out.
whatever.
No, no.
It is scheduled to be completed at the factory on June 24th, 2024.
Right.
They have to get it to us,
Right,
and so it's in Georgia that it's made.
so yeah,
So
then
we
they gotta
will-
drive it here, and then we have to have it outfitted with all of the other stuff,
Correct.
so yes,
Yep.
yep,
We're looking for like August for,
We'd like to
if
see
not
it,
longer.
we'd like to see it in service in August, I mean,
at
So-
least June for you guys to start your customization.
yeah.
So is the legislators done doing what they're doing that's hard for us, or they still?
They're just getting started.
That's what I was afraid
That's
of.
pretty something else.
I sat in on a legislative forum just virtually last week, and right now, I mean, the big thing at the on the legislative docket is the AEA and what they're working on with that, but, so the Ways and Means, anything that would be, you know, us related, you know, especially with tax stuff, won't come down until closer, they only have 100-day session supposedly, this, you know, on the second year terms, so we won't be seeing those, but, you know, I've heard different things on them still looking at local option sales tax and trying to do something with that. You know, I think what I had heard was they wanna see how this process that they did last year kind of shakes out before they do any more with actual property tax, but that doesn't leave other things like local option sales tax on the, you know, that might be on the table, who knows what they might think you're closed, you know, once they get to the, further into the session.
When is our, we have a certain time we have to have our budget done and approved by, correct?
We have until the end of April. We
Oh,
can't
okay.
hold our public hearing. That's kind of why I gave you this information on the proposed tax rate. Because this proposed tax rate, we can't have the hearing until after, I think it was March 24th, so we can get that set here before not too long. But I also have to have it to the county auditor by March
15th at the latest, I think, but they want it there
I think they
earlier.
want it earlier in March,
Yep.
like right at that beginning of that week,
Yep.
of that month. So they actually have to send out a mailing of when all of our stuff is and what our proposed that's something new this year, that they actually have to send out a mailing with everybody, you know, with a consolidated rate. So, so that if somebody wants to come and have a conversation about their proposed tax rate with the city of Lakeview, then they have that option. So, yeah, so we've got, you know, here, I'll be trying to put, you know, I know we don't have a meeting next week, so.
You don't?
No, on February 5th, we don't, because y'all told me you weren't, there wasn't gonna be enough for a quorum here.
Okay.
That's why we had those
Next
Oh,
regular
that's
meetings
right.
tonight.
Sorry, I'm thinking the weekend.
Yeah, so then the 12th, we'll have another budget session, and then our regular meeting on the 19th, and hopefully I'll have a lot of all of this put together for you, so you can just kinda take a look and say, you know, here's the package deal.
Well, my question is, when you would get everything separated out like you're working on, which I'm totally behind, then we go through the department needs and assessment wants type thing, are we gonna do that, or
Yes,
wish list, what is gonna get cut, what isn't gonna get cut, or what
Yep.
we're gonna try and do? Does
yeah,
that make
and
sense?
Jason and I, we've gone pretty much through kind of the water departments and the water, electrical, and sewer. There's, you know, a couple of, you know, putting what the wish list is together, and then what we think in capital projects and different things, and then kind of, you know, streamlining it down from there of what we think can fit into the budget and what we don't think can fit into the budget, just so that, I mean, you guys aren't, you know, then what those needs will be. I mean, Chris gave me his list, his is pretty minimal on what
Is that
his
just
needs
a
are.
one-year wish list, or are they giving like a long-term a little bit too?
I mean, long-term, I mean, I think we kind of have, you know, our 5-year plan sort of, and, you know, so we went through another document the other day, and they're like, well, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is what we still have planned for the rest of this year. And then what are we gonna look for the next budget year of wanting to do, because we haven't touched the lift stations. There's a couple of manholes that were in the idea, so we were kind of looking at that, and, you know, we've done a lot this year, including Lakeshore Drive, which we did a lot of sewer improvements there. So some of this stuff may have to get pushed off, depending on where we think where the budget is now and what we can get done for the rest of this year. Then there might be a few things that we push off into next year, and unfortunately, you know, that might be the way it flies. You know, in the water department, cross our fingers right now that everything is, you know, we do have to get that one thingy fixed on the
The
top.
connection on the aerator to the clear well.
Yeah.
Right, so, yeah, so that will be, that's an immediate need project that we need to try and get, so we might have to push, you know, some other things that we wanna do.
So where are we at with Parks Department head?
I would like to get, here in the next couple of weeks, that might be a job that we work on this week, to try and get the job description put together of what we want and get that out. We also need to get out, the advertisement for seasoned employees, cause I don't want that to wait, because before we know it,
That was my next question.
it will
so thank
be,
you.
you know,
Cause
here-
Easter's March
before-
31st this year, and somebody's gotta be available to get the park cleaned up for the Easter egg hunt and get some of that stuff
Well, and
Right.
going.
to bring you guys up to speed, you two, so, and I don't know if this has been discussed, but our campground manager was in charge of our parks as well, and we split that off 2 years ago, or a year.
3 or 4, it's been
Who
longer
was,
than that.
we hired, Cricket was the head.
Yeah, but you had Eric before that. The only
But
time,
Eric reported to,
in
Bruce.
the beginning,
yeah, okay.
but even Eric's last 2 years here,
It was split,
it was
okay.
split.
Because I was on the council when we split it.
Yep,
So we went to, the campground manager did the campground, then we had the head of the parks department, then we brought that parks department head to full-time.
Yeah.
So we could utilize that parks department head to help with snow removal or water main break or whatever, but yet to utilize them to do the maintenance on a bunch of the equipment in the off-season so they can be ready to go. And do like what you said, get the park ready to go, that type of stuff. So I don't know how far along we wanna wait on trying to get a department head hired. for
We
that.
don't wanna wait. I'd like to get it sooner rather than later. I guess Jason and I have been kinda looking at what that job description, cause I mean, we did interview and we had several. Where we struggled a little bit was, I think we had overqualified people that, you know, on the water side, they had the experience, but then they didn't, For the park side of it, it wasn't something that they could do, but the salary that we were putting in there, they were way, overqualified for, in a sense, I guess, the position. So Jason and I have been talking about, how that position, really should look.
Well, that position should be prioritized with the parks,
Yes,
right?
Yep.
Am I thinking right?
And then the seasonal employees and how that with, the campground and everything and how we all want that to look as well. So, we've been working on, putting that together.
And I have no idea, normally we have these budget meetings and all the department heads come and present it. And Nancy was our campground manager last year, she's continuing to come back, do we know, or is that?
She'll be able to apply.
She'll be able to apply, okay. So
Because we have to,
do we know when we're gonna do that then too?
that's what we were talking about, the seasonal employees, so all of that I wanna get out into the paper so that we have the opportunity to make sure that,
Okay.
and then I'd like to get it here in the next couple of weeks before Jason leaves for his vacation. So that by the end of, we're getting this put together and we have applications here at the beginning of March, cause even Easter's early this year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so even if somebody's gotta get the park and things cleaned up, whether it's other employees or whether we have somebody hired,
Right, and
somebody's
that's
gotta do it.
why I was bringing
and
that
it'll
part,
get taken care of.
had a parks brought up, because this is the end of January, it's time that we should be advertising for that to
Yep.
get.
Yeah, if they have to give a 2-week notice and if,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get that put together and we'll get it advertised, so. We might even be able to, if we work on it, might maybe get that done by Thursday before it needs to go on the paper.
And I don't know where you guys advertise, but
The paper, yeah, I think there's different, we talked about different formats of ways we can maybe attract,
our local paper really doesn't,
Right.
It's gotta be.
and we might be able to do some things with Indeed or, that kind of stuff too with that type of position. And, the other the
Right.
circulation, maybe we could put it down in the Carroll even the paper. No offense, but sometimes trying to reach the public via the paper
Right.
is a little bit more of a challenge. So,
So-
especially this type of person that we're looking for.
So, have we determined what the salary's gonna be, hourly wage, or what's your thoughts?
I think it depends on experience and qualifications.
Yeah,
That's based on the union.
and
right, but see, when they hired Cricket, it was the same wage as the public works employee,
yeah.
because they were going to public works over the winter.
Right.
And I think that's probably what we would do as well, is that position, considering that they would also be public works and going to there, it would be the same salary.
It is proven that when we raised our seasonal employee rates, last year we had some really good seasonal employees,
Right.
in my opinion.
That has not always been the case.
Correct, and I think we made that decision.
You get what you pay
Might
for.
cost you more per hour, but.
You're getting more out of it per hour.
Yeah.
But we need to look at some full-time or some, not full-time, but adults for the campground instead of 14 and 15-year-olds who can't,
Right.
Enforce anything.
Or count change.
can't,
And I'll speak for myself, I'm all in favor of that if we can get them to apply. And I don't know what that, but again, it goes back to that rate. Our previous administrator was trying to do everything at minimum wage or a little bit above that, and in today's world, you can't do that. I mean, Jim's got a business. You're gonna hire somebody good, it's gonna.
I'd rather have one $20 person over 4 $10 people.
Right.
So, yeah, you're gonna get more for what you pay.
What about the thought of a campground host?
That actually crossed my mind as well.
Because, when you think about
Do we have a volunteer?
out at the state side, you got a campground host. Any other, like down in Saylorville, they have campground hosts, and that host is in charge of basically policing the campground. You know what I'm saying?
Well, especially consideration of after hours, or
Right.
maybe not all, so that your manager may not be spending,
They're managing instead of policing.
yes.
And
And
they're
then they
giving out-
aren't there till 9 o'clock, you know, then your manager's not there till 9 o'clock at night, you have a campground host that might be,
Right.
you know, and especially on the weekends too.
Yeah.
Have you seen a
and you're-
campground host in a situation like we have here? Most, and we camp, so I just have seen it, mostly their state park will have a campground host because they don't have anybody there during, you know, they don't have an employee on, you know, the state
Right.
side over here doesn't have anybody there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're doing all the check-ins and things like that.
Right, right.
It might not be the same benefits as a state because they're not gonna do as much, but to have somebody that wants to camp there the whole summer and
Yeah,
oversee
you're
things a little
trading
bit.
off that camp spot
Exactly,
for,
it'd be well worth it.
for being there.
So I just
They might
wanna
not have
say-
the same requirements as a state person because there are employees there, you
Yeah,
know, for
yeah.
a certain amount of the week. but-
And the
Or
state
maybe even
campgrounds,
not, or maybe even at least a reduced rate
Yeah,
if they're,
exactly.
if they're there versus, you know, because their expectations of what they would be required to
Right.
do
Would be
might not
less,
be as
yeah.
much, you know,
You're not asking them to go rent mini golf course and
Or
so-
clean the bathrooms.
things like that, but just to
Possibly.
be there to help with
Yep.
check, if somebody shows up late to check in, make sure they get where they need to be.
so
and
in
things
state
like that.
campgrounds, you have to reserve online. You cannot go to any office and reserve, where in our case,
You can't,
people make reservations at the
because we
office.
cannot reserve lakefront property.
Right, you cannot reserve lakefront properties.
The other
But,
thing
you
too,
know,
though,
you-
when we're talking about the campground, is that I would like to make sure we maybe change our policy down there. A lot of times that concession window is closed because we didn't have
right,
a person working, but yet the campground person is there.
right?
So, I've heard that more than once.
So-
I couldn't do mini golf today, it said closed, but yet that person's in there, why can't they take my money?
Yeah, so again, you know, if you had a campground host to take off some of those responsibilities of that person.
So which stall do you want?
No.
Where's that?
Well, that comes down,
Or you could have a combination of two
Right.
seasonal campers, say, all right, this is your week, this week's your week.
Yeah,
And that's what they have down in Saylorville.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had two spots or three spots and they just had to guarantee that one of them was gonna be full, you know, if I park, hypothetically, I parked there all summer long and I gave you a list of a third of the weeks that I'd be there the whole time.
right,
And you worked it out, it'd be worth giving up a couple of spots to that, to have somebody that wouldn't have to be there 7 days a week, 360, you know, the entire summer. But if you had a couple of spots that they could leave their camper all year
right.
at a discounted rate or whatever, that wouldn't be bad. It'd be hard to find somebody that could do it all year. But
Well, that's a commitment,
It's
they
just
want to be tied down.
Right, right.
Exactly. But if you had a couple of spots that you could do, that wouldn't be a bad.
You'd also have to look at though how involved they're gonna be, because are they gonna be
And that's
taking
what-
money
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
trying to put in reservations?
I don't agree
or-
with any of
No, I
that.
don't.
Well, that's what I
No,
said, when
no,
you're
it's
saying
out.
mini golf though, you know, why could they, well, okay, then you're taking money, then
Yeah,
you're
Well,
in the office handing
but
out
I would- I
I
would
coins,
think
wanna
and
make
we're
you're,
all-
talking at maybe a couple
Yeah.
of different things of more of the, you know, maybe they could guide them to their spot. but
Right.
Not necessarily have access to the reservation system, but know that,
This might
you know-
alleviate some of the pressure off of the people in the concession stand and office, so they had more hours to fill that office, so they could do
Right.
any
Two of
double
two of the
for
biggest
certain
problems we
concessions.
have at our campground, too many vehicles per campsite. No,
Nobody polices that.
nobody, well, they try and they
Yeah,
don't
it just-
enforce it.
It's hard to.
The other is the after-hour stuff.
right,
And it's, you cannot send a 14 or 15-year-old down there to try and tell them.
tell
you can't
somebody
do
that they're being,
Remember the
you
two
know.
biggest problems, and,
Yep.
you know, while we're talking about this, I do not want a band in that campground playing till midnight this year. That policy needs to be axed right now. That was so loud in my house,
We weren't around for that, but I heard about that. Was that something the campground even knew about?
absolutely they
Yeah.
did. There's somebody that's sitting here that give them permission to play that long.
I thought we had like quiet hours at 10 o'clock.
It went till midnight,
Okay.
and they thanked that person, I'm not gonna say his name, because they don't want me. They thanked that person more than once for letting them play in the campground. And it was so loud at our place, I mean, we had grandkids there, they couldn't sleep. We shut the house up as tight as we couldn't sleep. Till midnight, well, 11:55, I got it shut down.
Well, and I think, you know, when quiet time is quiet time, and I actually think, because we looked at that, it's not, I think it's 11, isn't
It's
it?
11,
It's
Okay.
11.
but it
So-
needs to go to 10.
I think the DNR maybe is 10. where
DNR's
we're-
10, ours needs to go to 10.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, we're a city campground, but, you know, I think that,
You think about if you're this camper
Right.
in campsite 108 and they had a band in 104, and this campground, this guy comes to the campsite to sit and relax, he really don't care for the music they're playing, and now he's gotta sit listening to it till 11:55.
well, I mean, it's just kinda like the Stone Pier, and I don't know about what the light situation is, but, I mean, the Stone Pier concerts, I mean,
Done at dusk.
yeah, right, so I don't see why that can't be, you know, we'll look at it.
Again, something to discuss along with.
Lots of things to talk about.
But I think it's an important asset for our community, we wanna try and make it the best
Yeah.
asset we can.
Yeah, and if they wanna have, I mean, if they wanna keep the tradition of having a, you know, I guess I don't know the reasoning behind the band night or whatever, but if they wanna do something like that, then again, we have to put it in as like, okay, you know, this is what happens and it's done at this time, absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts, you know.
And I'm not opposed to bands, it just got too loud, too
Too late.
late, it was loud
Right.
too late.
Yep.
Are we done with our
My
budget
old
session?
ears don't like late.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
meeting adjourned.
I think we need some time, we need some focus, some time.